Hello, my friends. It's your buddy Phil here, project management trainer and coach. Today, we're going to play a game called the Power of Three. And the Power of Three, my main objective is to find any gaps in your knowledge for the PMP exam. I'm also going to be working to help you fine-tune your focus on things that might have been blind spots. Okay, so to play this game, it's going to be closed book. It's going to be about a minute per question. The cool thing about this game is, unlike the actual exam, this is like training wheels. You're only going to have three options, and that's why I call it the Power of Three. All right, some of the questions are going to be elementary, and then as we go further, we're going to step it up. Are you ready? Let's get into it. Here's your first question. All right, 3, 2, and 1. The answer to this question, my friends, what comes first on an Agile project? It's not the team charter. It's not the assumption log. It's the Agile project charter, because that is what gives the vision and the understanding of what the project is all about. All right, let's go to our next question. Who is accountable for backlog prioritization and management? I'll give you a minute for this one as well. All right, 3, 2, and 1. So who is accountable for backlog management? I can tell you it's not the Scrum Master and it's not the team. This is the job of the product owner. The product owner is a person who is responsible and accountable for doing this. Now, the product owner could bring in other people to participate as people who give ideas when it comes to prioritization and management, when it comes to backlog refinement, but the ultimately answerable person is the product owner. All right, let's go to our next question. Here's your next one. What should be done after developing a charter? I'll give you about a minute. All right, 3, 2, and 1. So after you have developed a project charter, the next thing you should do is actually not procurement selection, and it's not the detailed scope. You first of all want to identify stakeholders. Remember, you are in initiating. So the first thing you would do out of these options is identify the stakeholders. Let's go to our next question. What should be done after developing a project charter? Well, I guess it's almost like the same question. I'll give you some time to think about it. All right, 3, 2, and 1. You don't need that much time because you just looked at something similar. So let's think about it. You're done with the project charter. Do you close out the project immediately? No, you don't. Do you immediately begin to generate reports after creating the charter? Or would you first of all work on detailed scope, which happens in planning? Yes, you would. You would do the detailed scope. So the answer to that is detailed scope. All right, let's go to our next question. Who is accountable for performing the project work? I'll give you a minute. All right, that was more than enough time. 3, 2, and 1. Person who is accountable for performing the work is not one person, it is the team. And when you see team, I know those of you who are more in depth into the world of Scrum, you hear the word developers. Well, that's exactly what this means. You got to be ready to roll with the language you're given on the PMP exam. It's not going to be exactly as it is in the Scrum guide or in other literature you've read. So you need to be able to compare what is being said to what the PMI calls it. So if PMI says team, you know that means developers. If PMI says team facilitator, you know that would mean Scrum Master and so on. All right, so it's not the Scrum Master or the product owner, it's the team. They do the work. All right, here's your next question. Who is responsible for facilitating the daily Scrum and retrospective meetings? I'll let you think about it. All right, 3, 2, and 1. All right, so let's take a look. Who is responsible for facilitating the daily Scrum? It might shock you. It says facilitating the daily Scrum and retrospective meetings. Well, did you know that the product owner does not need to be in the daily Scrum? We would want the product owner to be in the retrospective zone. It might shock you, but the Scrum Master just needs to ensure that the daily Scrum was held. They are not responsible for facilitating, neither do they need to be there. It's not one of their core roles. So my friends, the answer to this, the best answer is team. The team should be able to facilitate after a while, maybe not at the beginning, but after a while they will, but it's not one of the core roles of the Scrum Master or core responsibilities of the Scrum Master to be the facilitator. Do they do it on a lot of projects? Yes, they do. But experienced Scrum Masters know that after a while, the team should begin to facilitate its own daily Scrums. And also, the retrospective doesn't need to be facilitated by the Scrum Master alone, right? So this is more of a team thing. All right, I know that one's going to shock some of you, but that's just the way the cookie crumbles. Let's go to our next one. Who acts as a team coach? I'll let you think about it. All right, 3, 2, and 1. So who acts as a team coach? Well, you probably figured it out. That's the Scrum Master. The Scrum Master coaches a team to excellence. Great job. Here's your next one. Who is the business representative? I'll let you think about it. All right, 3, 2, and 1. Let's take a look. The answer to this is none other than, of course, the product owner. We often call them the chief value officer of the record, right? Just as a fun term. We also call them the mouthpiece for the business. So product owner is a business representative. Here's your next one. What should be done after developing a charter? Similar to what you saw before, I'll give you a minute. All right, 3, 2, and 1. So what should be done after developing the charter? The answer, my friends, is not to close out the project. And it would not be a change request because all you've done is develop the charter. The best answer is you would plan the project. So you develop the charter, then you go into planning. That would be the best answer. Okay, here's your next one. Which artifact comes first in Scrum? All right, 3, 2, and 1. The answer to this, my friends, is what is at the very beginning. And it's not the increment, it's not the sprint log. At the very beginning, you have the product backlog. It's not the sprint backlog, it's the product backlog. that exists first in Scrum. That is where all of the customer and stakeholder requests go right up front. All right, here's your next question. Which artifact comes last in Scrum? Take a best guess, go for it. All right, my friends, 3, 2, and 1. The artifact that comes last is not the product backlog or the sprint backlog, it's the increment. That's what you get at the end of the sprint. So it's worded a bit quirkily, but it's worded to make you think. All right, so your increment will be the last thing you get in a Scrum sprint. All right, let's go to our next one. Who can modify a sprint? All right, 3, 2, and 1. The answer to this is not the Scrum Master. They can't do that. Our architect is a bogus one thrown in here from somewhere else. The answer is the product owner. The product owner can modify a sprint. All right, so far, I hope you're enjoying these questions. Go ahead, hit the like button if you are. Share with your friends. It's very important that they know that this information is out there. Now, this is pretty much for intermediate to even a little bit of advanced level. So the questions here, even though they are written in a very elementary one-liner kind of way, they could really help some of your friends find their gaps really quickly. All right, here's your next question. Which comes first? Scoping out the project schedule, or detailed cost for each activity? I'll give you a minute to think about it. All right, 3, 2, and 1. That should be enough. I know that it's a little bit of a predictive one. So first thing you would do on a project is not detailed cost, because in order to do detailed cost, you would need a breakdown of activities, which takes us to project schedule. And in order to get a project schedule, you would need to know what the scope is. So you break it down into a WBS and into a list of activities, which will help create your schedule. So the best answer is scoping out the project. Let's go to our next question. Which comes first? Closing out a project, closing out a phase, closing out a project, closing a contract in a phase. Think about it. 3, 2, and 1. All right, let's take a look. So closing out a phase would need to happen before closing out a project. So we can go ahead and cancel closing out a project. That wouldn't come first. Closing out a phase would come first. But before closing out a phase, what would happen is closing out a contract in a phase. So the best answer that I was looking for is number 3, closing a contract in a phase. All right, here's your next one. Which of these can be used when identifying stakeholders? Is it a stakeholder register, stakeholder plan, or MPS? Think about it. All right, my friends, 3, 2, and 1. So the answer to this, when you're identifying stakeholders, what you could use to capture the stakeholders is not the plan, that will come after. And Net Promoter Score is really a score of how likely it is for your stakeholders to recommend you to associated businesses or the associates. So it's not that. The best answer is stakeholder register. It's that simple. The stakeholder register is an output of identifying stakeholders. Let's go on to our next one. The next one says, which of these is a two-dimensional tool for identifying stakeholders? Think about it. All right, that's enough. 3, 2, and 1. Let's take a look. So which of these is a two-dimensional tool? Well, a stakeholder cube is a three-dimensional tool. Remember, the stakeholder cube has the power, the interest, and it could also have the attitude of the stakeholder. So it takes the power interest grid and it throws in a third dimension of attitude. So it's not the stakeholder cube. The stakeholder engagement assessment matrix, which I just call the SEAM, is not a two-dimensional tool. It's really just a table. And on that table, you have this mnemonic, earns less. You got to remember that. You have unaware, resistant, neutral, supportive, and lead-in. And then you have in each of those fields as appropriate, C for current and D for desired, right? D, desired, means that stakeholder is right where you left them. So it's not the SEAM. The SEAM is more like a, if you will, a kind of matrix, kind of like a register. And we don't use the seam in the identify stakeholders process. We use the seam in planning stakeholder engagement. That's why it's called stakeholder engagement assessment matrix. So it's not that. The answer is, of course, the power interest grid, and make sure you know the other terms for it: influence impact grid, so on and so forth. All right, let's move on to your next question. Which threat response approach takes probability or impact to 0? All right, my friends, let's end this one. So, which threat response takes probability or impact to 0? You probably figured out that the answer is not accept. That will keep the response, that will keep the probability or impact exactly as they are. It's not mitigate. Mitigate is not one that takes them to 0. It will reduce the probability or impact, either one or both, but it would not take it to 0. The one that would take it to 0, either one, is avoid. Avoid will either take probability to 0 or take the impact to 0 or take both to 0. All right, so avoidance is the best answer. Let's go to your next one. Which opportunity response approach takes probability to 100%? All right, 3, 2, and 1. The answer to this, my friends, is not share, and it's not enhance. The best answer, exploit. Exploit is the opportunity response approach that takes probability to 100%, and make sure that that opportunity absolutely does happen. The answer is exploit. All right, let's move on to your next one. Next question. Which risk response reduces a threat's probability or impact? All right, 3, 2, and 1. The answer to this, which risk response reduces a threat's probability? We're talking about reduction. So it's not accept. Accept doesn't reduce anything. It's not avoid. Avoid is an absolute removal of that thing, probability or impact wise. So it's not that. The best answer, talking about a reduction, is mitigate. Mitigate will reduce the probability or impact of a threat. Avoid will take the impact or probability to a 0. So there is a difference. Best answer is mitigate. All right, here is your next question. Which opportunity response approach increases impact or probability? All right, 3, 2, and 1. So we're talking about which opportunity response approach increases impact or probability. The best one here is not share, and it's not accept. Accept does nothing. It's enhance. Enhance increases the impact or probability. Remember, we're talking about opportunities here. So this is what we want to increase: the opportunities, probability, or impact. Here's your next one. You put aside some money to deal with a risk if it happens. Which risk response is this? I'll give you a minute. Alrighty then, 3, 2, and 1. So using the process of elimination, as we always do, we're talking about dealing with a risk if it happens. Mitigate deals with a risk before it happens, not if it happens, right? A workaround is a response that was not initially planned, right? The best answer in terms of putting aside some money, which is in some way a little bit more proactive than not doing anything at all, is still accept. If you put some money aside to deal with the risk, if it happens, it's not a workaround because you've already kind of made a response in some way by putting the money aside, but it's not the most proactive response, but it is a response. We refer to that as accepting because you're not doing anything except the risk does happen. So it's not proactive, you're accepting it, but if it happens, there's some money put aside. We'll talk about that one in a little bit. Here's your next question. Uh-oh, it's the same one. You put aside some money to deal with a risk if it happens. Which risk response is this? Now you see where I'm going. I'm going to give you a minute. Go for it. All right, 3, 2, and 1. So you probably guessed or done your research. Management reserves, they're not used for known risks, right? They're not used for things that we've identified up front. No. And you've got passive accept, which is doing absolutely nothing, but putting aside some money, that is active accept. I'm sure some of you got that right in a second. Let's move to our next one. A document in which contract types and mode of payment is described is what? Three, 2, and 1. I did expect that to go quick. The answer is, believe it or not this thing, which doesn't really exist, a contract charter, no such thing. And it's not the procurement plan, as some of you might have thought. No, procurement management plan does not contain this stuff. Contract types, mode of payment, all that, you would find it in a procurement strategy. All right, more than a procurement plan. All right, let's go to our next question. And then if you want to check this out, make sure you look at the outputs in the guide in 12.1, the outputs. This is an output in the 6th edition known as procurement strategy. All right, let's move on. Here's your next question. Which of these is a communication method? This is going to go quick. 3, 2, 1. The best answer, my friends, is not email, and it's not tone of voice. The best answer is push. Remember, we have 3 types of communication methods. Okay, it is not email or tone of voice. The best answer is push. Here's your next one. Which of these is a communication method? Uh-oh, here we go again. 3, 2, 1. The answer is not text and it's not words. The answer is interactive. So you have push, pull, and interactive. Those are the 3 communication methods. All right, just a bit of trivia to spice it up. Here we go. An attribute of quality to be measured is what? 3, 2, 1. The answer, it's not measurement. That's not an attribute. That's an actual thing you measure. And it's not defect. That's a thing. The attribute, the best word is metric. The metric is an attribute that you measure. Next question. The cost of upholding quality throughout the product life is called what? If you need more time, always hit the pause button. 3, 2, 1. The answer is not cost of production, and it's not appraisal cost, because appraisal cost is also included in this one called the cost of quality, which is the correct answer. So the cost of quality is the life of the product. We're talking about the quality throughout the product life and the cost of upholding that. Just like warranty work, it's part of the product life, and so on and so forth. All right, here we go. Next one. Which metric is best for checking cost performance? If you need more time, hit the pause button. 3, 2, 1. The best answer is not the schedule performance index, and it's not the cost variance. The cost variance is not the best because it shows you a variance, but it doesn't show you the variance in comparison with the overall budget. The cost performance index, on the flip side, takes a look at what you have spent to date and what you have accomplished. So the best metric is that. That's why it's called cost performance index. All right, so the indices are usually better when you're checking performance. Here's your next one. Which metric is best for checking schedule performance? All right. 3, 2, and 1. All right, so for schedule performance, you knew it wasn't that. And based on what I told you, performance, that's a trick. It's not schedule variance because schedule variance just shows us a variance. But again, it's not in comparison with anything that has been necessarily budgeted in total, or it's not really in comparison with the schedule performance. So remember, the schedule performance index is the earned value, which kind of holds the performance in some way. But when you juxtapose it with planned value, it helps you see the accomplishment in comparison with the plan for what you should have accomplished by a particular date. This just shows you the difference between these two, EV minus PV. So it doesn't really show you what the performance is, because you could have a schedule variance of $5, for example. If the schedule variance is $5, that could be on any project. It could be on a $1 million project. It could be on a $200 project. So it's not the best one. The best one is the schedule performance index. Hope that makes sense. All right. We're almost done here. Let's go to our next one. Which metric is best for checking variances in the schedule? Now it's getting simpler. All right, my friends, 3, 2, and 1. The best answer that I would have expected you to choose is schedule variance. It's that simple. I just gave you a whole bunch of time. You didn't need it. The answer is schedule variance. It's not the performance indices. When you're checking variances, you need one of the V's, SV, CV, so on and so forth. When it comes to schedule variance. When it comes to cost variance. All right, here we go. Here's your next one. The actual cost of work performed is known as what? All right, 3, 2, and 1. The best answer to this is not the earned value, or the planned value? It's the actual cost. Remember, actual cost of work performed. Let's go to our next one. We're almost done here. Next one, the budgeted cost of work performed is known as what? All right, 3, 2, and 1. Very obvious here. It's not the actual cost because we just talked about that, right? So we're down to 2. Work performed. Planned value is planned, not performed. So the best answer is EV. That's how you answer it. Let's go to our next one. This should go easy now. The budgeted cost of work scheduled is known as, this is so easy. 3, 2, 1. Well, we know it's not the actual cost because it says budgeted cost. And we know it's not the budgeted cost of work performed because we just did earned value. So the answer is planned value. What is scheduled? Planned, scheduled, if you get it. Cool. Let's move to our next one. Soft logic is known as what? All right, that's a pretty easy one. So soft logic is also known as, it's not internal and it's not mandatory. The answer is discretionary dependency. So a discretionary dependency is based on what you perceive the work to be. It is dependent on the observer. It is not based on the order of the work. So that's that. You got a few questions left. Here's your next one. Hard logic is also known as what? Very, very simple at this point. All right. 3, 2, and 1. The answer to this, my friends, of course, it's not discretionary because we just talked about that, and it's not internal either. It's mandatory. Mandatory is also known as hard logic. Now, discretionary that we talked about just now, remember, it's known as soft logic. It's also known as preferential logic, just so you know. All right, my friends, we are almost completely done. Here's your next one, your final one. In Scrum, the most common duration for a sprint is what? 3, 2, and 1. All right. So the answer, my friends, is not 8 weeks. Definitely not. 4 weeks is the limit, but it's not the most common in industry. In industry, the most common, and this is in the APG as well, it is 2 weeks. My friends, you've gone through 35 questions. You sat tight, you rode with me. Well done. I hope this helps you fine-tune your focus. If you have enjoyed these questions, go ahead and hit that bell icon so you're notified when I've got more videos like this. And go ahead and hit the like button and share with your friends so they know this is available. I made this kind of intermediate so that you needed to have some knowledge, but not over the top. So it's a nice in the middle ground kind of quiz to help those who are very early in the process to level up to intermediate. All right. If you found this to be helpful and you're looking for training, coaching, education, in your career even, because I mentor, train, coach, and help people trying to get certified everywhere, right? Not just for PMP, but even the ACP and those looking for work. Go on down to praizion.com, take a look at your options. And if you are new to this whole thing, I want to indulge you. Go on down to Amazon, look for my book. It's called Project Management Layman's Guide. It's a concise study of the 7th edition, and it's great for newbies, all right? You found this to be helpful, my friends. Again, I would really appreciate a like, subscribe, and follow me. If you haven't subscribed to my awesome podcast on whatever platform you're used to, I want you to subscribe to my podcast right now. So if you're on an Apple device, I want you to go on down to the website. It's called pmradio.org. pmradio.org is home for my podcast called the PMP Exam Radio Show. So if you haven't subscribed to it, go on down to pmradio.org. Look for it on Amazon Music. Look for it on Apple devices, iTunes. Look for it on Google. Look for it on Spotify. On Spotify, you might even be able to watch some video of it. All right. So it's a 360-degree immersion daily. I've got probably 120 plus, maybe even more episodes, hundreds of hours to keep you engaged as you study for your exam. All right. And it's free. That's the really cool thing. All right. Go on down to pmradio.org. Look forward to seeing you very soon. It's your buddy Phil signing off. Bye for now.